Hello, beautiful beings. Beth Catherine here, and I wanted to share how I got into this dolphin and whale transmission work that I do. So, for those of you who don't know me, I'm the founder of the Dolphin Rose Temple, and a really big part of my work is helping people such as yourself connect with the whales and the dolphins, the cetaceans in the ocean. And we do this multidimensionally, we do this in the quantum, we do this on our meditation pillows, and more. And I do this work, a large part of the reason why is because I've actually spent many lifetimes as a dolphin, as a mermaid, and a big part of my mission coming here in a human body is to activate the mermaid templates, the whale and the dolphin grids, and to help people remember our brothers and sisters in the sea. So I recently received a question on Instagram asking me how I knew that I was a mermaid and really how I got into this. And of course, that's not something that I could just type back in a DM. It really is a story. So I wanted to share this story here with you. And potentially you'll see yourself in this story as well, and it might help to connect some of the dots for you and answer that question of how do you know if you're a mermaid? So my earliest memories of connecting with this energy were when I was very young, probably about 4 or 5 years old, and at the time we lived next to the sea and I would go swimming. And I remember pretending I was a mermaid, from the time of its earliest childhood memories, just pretending I was a mermaid underneath the waves. And fast forward many years, well, not that many years later, I was still a child. And I remember being in the bathroom and I was having some problems with my knees. Like they were a bit, I don't know, maybe just a bit, they just felt like maybe I was experiencing arthritis when I was like 9. Thankfully that went away. But anyway, I remember thinking to myself, it was just this thought that occurred out of the blue. Oh, it's because I used to have a tail and my legs were used to always having energy move through them. So now with human legs, the energy isn't moving as much and it's blocking things up. And I literally had that whole download before I knew what a download was. And I remember just then my ego and rational and conscious mind witnessed that thought and was like, what? It didn't come from my normal thought processes. It came from somewhere deep within me. And it actually kind of confused me. But I knew it was true at the same time. And then, some more years later, or maybe around the same time, I don't know. I was a kid in all these examples. I remember being in a gift shop in a mall. And this is when, back in the day, malls were big and gift shops, and you'd go in and you could press which CD you wanted to listen to and it would change the CD and the speakers. And, that way you could kind of choose which CD you wanted to purchase. And I remember being in this shop and hearing this music and kind of falling into this trance and really just becoming altered and having this feeling, this thought of they're calling to me. And I went over and I looked at what was playing and it was orca sounds, so killer whale sounds. And again, this was before, I was raised in a very sort of 3D environment. So I wasn't spiritual. My parents didn't raise me like that. I actually went to Catholic school. So even at the time, I kind of was like, you weirdo. I would judge myself for having these remembrances, being like, that's weird. Okay, or just who do you think you are? But they were still coming through and they were coming up. And my favorite animal was an orca, growing up, and a bear. I also really loved bears because I grew up in the mountains. But, the orcas really presented themselves as animals that I really connected with. And then I think after I was a teenager and, really saturated in that 3D sort of conditioning and going to school and eventually starting to drink with your friends and go out to clubs and stuff, that kind of just went away a little bit. And then I started having my spiritual awakening. Funnily enough, when I, lived by the ocean, because I, again, grew up by the mountains for the most part. And from there, it was just like these pieces. So when I was questioning where I was to move, like I was with my partner and he broke up with me, and I knew that I wanted to live by the ocean. I had moments of visiting the ocean and just feeling spellbound by the ocean, and I just felt like I really wanted to live by the ocean, and I was having remembrances, things were coming through. And I remember, asking in my dreams, where would you have me move to? I asked, the universe, Mother, Father, God, where should I move? And I had 2 different dreams over that week of asking that question. And in one, I was a whale, and I was swimming to this place called Tofino on Vancouver Island in Canada. And in another dream, an old friend of mine handed me a silver coin, and there was a dolphin silhouette on the coin, and I flipped it around and it said Tofino. Now, I had known about Tofino for many years and had actually visited once. And I'd known about it because my grandfather, who lived about 5 hours away, would say, "Oh, you love whales. Well, I'll have to take you to Tofino, where the whales are." So I'd always associated Tofino to be this place where the whales were. And I ended up moving there and being surrounded. I literally lived right in front of the ocean, probably 30 meters in front of the ocean, and the ocean wrapping around me because we were on this peninsula. And living in Tofino, surrounded by orcas and gray whales, those were the 2 predominant species. Occasionally we'd have a humpback coming through and porpoises as well. And just all this oceanic energy really woke things up in me. Finally, I was able to spend time every single day with the ocean. And from there, it was just, moment to moment throughout the journey, also having these remembrances, this sudden remembrance of being an orca and going through a portal from Sirius to the ocean floor and incarnating on the earth. Things like that would just start coming to me. And I started following these trails more and more and more, to the point where the whales, very clearly told me, once I really opened up my multidimensional communication pathways, you need to really focus on this. By that time, I was running a business, working with the angels, teaching about divine feminine in business. And I was so connected to my dolphin and whale energy at that point, but I hadn't done anything with it professionally to help people, to help other people to connect and to transmit that consciousness. And it came to be really one day that the whale said, "You need to start sharing this. This is a big part of your path." So I created my first course called Dolphin Consciousness, which was a 5-week journey. I really wasn't sure if people would value connecting with whales and dolphins. I thought maybe people will just think it's like a fun thing to do. So I priced it really, really low, and I just wasn't sure what would happen. And the reason why I felt like, okay, I feel confident that I really need to do this is I was going for a walk one day to really ask, is this something that you would have me do? And I walked across, this kind of cliff edge close to my house overlooking the ocean, and I saw something that I'd never seen before in all of my years of living in Tofino, and that was a big, big, big pod of porpoises, which are essentially small dolphins, swimming. Never saw it again. I'd only ever seen a couple porpoises at a time, very, very occasionally. I was like, wow. And of course I knew absolutely, like, I need to do this. So I started sharing about it and inviting people into the 5-week journey. And during that time, when I was out surfing one day, I was past the break. So I was past where the waves are breaking, where it should just be, chill water. For the most part, chill. It is the ocean. And I heard this, actually, no, before this, well, I'll spoil what happened, because before this, I saw a whale in the distance. And I was like, oh my God, a whale, so cool. And I sang to it because, of course, whales and dolphins really are sound beings. So I sang to it, just, ah. And then I kind of went on my way surfing. And then a few minutes later, I heard this big sound. And I thought that it was a wave about to crash on me. The sound was so big and so close. And I was like, how is there a wave here? I'm past the break. And I looked, and it was the whale that had swam all the way over after I had sung and breathed through its blowhole very, very close to me. So close that I thought a wave was about to crash on me. And I was like, oh my goodness. And again, that was in that time frame when I was sharing about dolphin consciousness and inviting people into it. So I had these actual physical experiences where the whales and the dolphins were like, yes, like this is what you need to be doing. That's how I interpreted it. And since then, it's just been such a deepening, such an invitation from my soul to really focus on these frequencies. So I, at one point recently, made the decision to spend 2 months in Mozambique in southern Africa, where I could swim with wild dolphins a couple times, sometimes several times a week. There would be a small zodiac that would take us out, and we would swim with the dolphins in the morning, and these, like, it was so amazing. So I was able to swim with them many, many times in southern Africa. And then, recently I also went to French Polynesia to swim with the humpback whales, the wild whales. So I've really made it a focus. Like once the energy started to flow, I followed those pathways, and I would have experiences as well at the same time of remembering myself as a part of that community and having these beings. The more that I focused on them and allowed them in, showed up and would really say, you are a part of us, you're here on this mission, and more of my mission would be explained to me. And recently, only within really the last 6 months, the mermaids really, really showed up. For the most part, I was really connecting with the whales and the dolphins. And I hadn't really had like a whole lot of mermaid connection until, about 6 months ago. And the Ascended Mermaid Collective, who really I've kind of named in cooperation with them, the Ascended Mermaid Collective, because they're ascended mermaids. They're real beings that just don't necessarily live in the dimension that we're in, and so we can't necessarily see them, although some people have, and there's been many reports of sightings. And I had, visions and dreams of mermaids before, one particular strong one in Hawaii, but nothing like a really big invitation. And then it was just like something opened up. The more that I spent time really focusing on these frequencies, the ocean, the whales, the dolphins, the more that they, were speaking back to me, and I was allowing that, communication to open. So the mermaids, are really some of my favorites now because they're so unconditionally loving. And they also, shared with me, absolutely, you are a part of our community and you are on a mermaid mission right now, and you're working with many different mermaids in the quantum. And actually, I'm working with other soul aspects of me that are incarnated in mermaid bodies right now on Gaia. Our soul is very vast. It fractals out, our oversoul fractals, and we can be in many different bodies at one time from our greater oversoul. So it's been a really cool journey of learning more and remembering. And, for those of you, if you're listening and feeling and thinking, oh my goddess, like, is that me? If you are listening and you're having that feeling of like, I think that's me, or I want that, how do I know that's me? And there's something that pulls at you from within, that's a sure sign that absolutely this is you. If you were not a mermaid, and by that I mean you have had different incarnations in your soul's journey as a mermaid, as a dolphin, as a whale, it's this greater mer family. I consider it the greater mer family. If you didn't have those incarnations, and maybe you had like one once out of like 5 million lifetimes, you wouldn't really be, you would maybe think this information is kind of interesting, but you wouldn't feel like a tug. you're only going to feel a tug with this information from within if it's you, if I'm speaking to you as a part of the greater Mer family, if that emotion is there, if that desire is there. And it really doesn't matter if you've had a bunch of experiences like I've had, or just this kind of, you've always loved the ocean and it's just been this like quiet, voice and feeling within you that you've just always loved the ocean. It's going to show up differently for all of us depending on what our mission is. And you might not necessarily, you might be a mermaid being, but maybe a part of your, mission, you're working in a different sector of your soul's aspects. So you're not necessarily needing to do something like what I do, talking about them online and sharing and creating this whole, soul business temple around them. You might be guided in a different direction, or you may actually be really called into different fields working with the ocean. So it's really varied, it's not a one size fits all. Just because you're a mermaid sort of being, you need to look a certain way, have certain experiences, and have certain desires and dreams. We're so vast, we're so different, we're so unique, but we have one thing in common. We love the ocean, and on a soul level, we consider the ocean our mother. And this is what I would also share with you, right? If you want to learn more about these aspects of yourself and you feel that there's something here for you, my invitation for you would be to focus on it. It's not until I really focused on this connection in my life that it started to open up for me. There were bits and pieces that came through, but until I actually, for me personally, moved to the ocean and started meditating with the dolphins and the whales, inviting them into my day-to-day reality, I didn't necessarily have some big awakenings around it, but when I put that energy and I put my effort and energy and attention into it, it opened up and it grew. So I would recommend for you that you start to put more energy into this connection if you want it to open up and flourish more and reveal more of itself. One amazing thing that you can do is give an offering to Mother Ocean. Whether you live by the sea or not, you can offer it to the land, to water. Mother Ocean is always going to receive it if your intention is to give it to her, because water is everywhere and water is a part of the one ocean. Water is even in soil that you might place this offering on. So whether that's rose petals or a song or a crystal or something like that, you can actually offer to Mother Ocean and to her heart and ask, say, I love you, I give you this offering. Please help me to remember more and more of who I am in connection with you. I also have an incredible invitation for you if you are really drawn to exploring this aspect of yourself. And this is Dolphin Consciousness, a Mermaid Temple School. It's a 5-month journey that I offer, and it starts February 8th, 2024. And I do offer, this is the 3rd time I've offered it live. So, we've done this before, but every time it gets better and better. It's so awesome. And in this journey, we're going to be working with the humpback whales, the orcas, the dolphins, the Ascended Mermaid Collective, the white whales, blue whales, the Lemurians. We're going to go really deep in remembrance and also in learning how working with these beings really transforms our own lives and transforms the globe and ushers in the new earth frequencies. So the link to learn more is below if you are feeling resonant with that. And yeah, let me know in the comments below. Do you feel you're a mermaid? And feel free to share any experiences that you may have had on your journey that you might want to be witnessed in. And if it feels right, I'll be so excited to see you in Dolphin Consciousness, a Mermaid Temple School.